I am super excited to have my good friend and soon to be your good friend as well, Nakia Lawson, who is also known as the Tall Money Lady. You could probably not even imagine why she's given that title, but I'll just give you a little hint. She was with the WNBA while your guys were still home sleeping on it. But anyway, we're going to talk about that later. We are going to talk about money, my favorite topic to talk about. That is all we talk about on the Bougie Expats. I'm Sable, your bougie girlfriend, and we're going to get into it today. You have been asking me all the time about money. Do you have enough money? How much money you need to retire? Kia specializes in helping people retire well. And so that is what we're going to be talking about today. Now, I'm going to have to just tell you this. Kia is not your financial advisor right now. We're just having a conversation. We're just talking about money, how you can use your money, how you can spend your money, keep your money. But Nakia is not here giving you financial advice. You need a financial advisor, your very own financial advisor who you have paid. Right now, this is a conversation, and you get to listen to this conversation because I love you dearly. But if you really want to talk to Nakia, you can look her up. I'm not selling her. I'm just letting you know that's the only way she's going to give you advice is really personal to you. So let's get into it. Nakia, one of the things I continuously hear from the Black women over 40, they want to live abroad. They're itching for it. They are looking for it. They're planning for it, desiring for it, salivating for it. But the money issue comes up every single time. What do I have enough money? So if you have not planned well, because a lot of us have not planned well, statistics are showing that Black women are retiring with $30,000 in the bank. We know that most of our money goes to our family, our cousins, our uncles, our children, our spouses, our boo-boo or baby or whatever we call them, versus going to us. And we find ourselves at this stage not being able to financially support ourselves. And now we're like, yes, I'm going to get my money game together. At 40, over 40, talking about retiring abroad, is it really too late for us?
Absolutely not. I think it's important to understand what your expectations are. That's the thing that you really want to be focused on. Oftentimes, we talked about it earlier. We're talking about people think they're going to find a $500 apartment. People are like, oh, move to Taiwan or whatever country. And you don't have proper expectations of where you're going to live, how you're going to live, and what the overhead of that lifestyle is. I will say more and more people are becoming open to the idea of retiring out of the United States because of the cost of living. Whereas it's very challenging to retire here in the United States when you start thinking about healthcare costs, rising food costs, rising just to get an apartment. I mean, we're here in Atlanta. You try finding affordable housing. So that is pushing a lot of people out of the country. The most important thing is your expectation and understanding where you're going to move and why.
So my expectation on how I want to live as a retired person, that's my expectation. Now I am an advocate of, we don't have to shrink, right?
No.
Okay, I believe you're on the same plane. We're not shrinking how we live.
Right.
We may adjust how we live. We can downsize by choice, but we don't want to downsize our lifestyle. So if we're thinking about how we're going to maintain our same lifestyle, what would be some of the critical elements to have in our retirement financial plan?
One of the most critical elements is exactly what you've done. Most people only focus on the numbers when they're thinking about retirement. And you have to think about, like, what do you want retirement to feel like? Right? Because for example, for me, I said, I want my little condo here in Atlanta where I can pop in, and then I want a condo like 3 to 5 blocks from the beach. I don't have to be like right on the beach, but maybe a 3 to 5 block, walk to the beach, and I have the coffee shop that I go to every morning on the way to the bakery, and so I have an idea of what I want it to feel like, and then I can backtrack when I start thinking about where am I going to go? Am I going to go to Europe? Am I going to Africa? Am I going to South America? Am I going to Mexico? What does that look like? So the feeling of it is probably the most important part of the plan. Like, what do you want it to feel like?
I feel like you were like sneaking looking at our elevated exit roadmap because that is
No,
exactly
really? Oh,
yes,
okay, very cool.
that is exactly what we tell our clients is about how do you want to feel in your retirement. It's beyond money, right? So we actually have
Mhm.
the Black Women's Retirement Guide, Beyond Money. It's about
Mhm.
your lifestyle, it's
Wow.
about community, it's
Mhm.
about friends.
Mhm.
Those are the things that makes your retirement enjoyable, and
Absolutely.
those are also the things that make your life abroad environment good. But none of those things can also happen well if you don't have any
If you
money.
do not have any money.
If you're on
Well,
the struggle bus,
so so that number is that's relative, right?
absolutely.
I have clients who make very, very good money. Lifestyle wise, they're very stressed. And I have clients who make a little less and they're living the dream in their minds. So again, um, I always say retirement is not necessarily age, it's a number, right? And your number for retirement, you could go somewhere and live off $3,000 a month. That's great. Or you could be the person that needs 20 grand a month,
Yep.
even living out of the country, depending on that feeling, that lifestyle. What do you
Absolutely.
want that to look like? So those numbers are pretty relative. When you start thinking about the road mapping, though, I think, like you said, starting with what do you want it to feel like? And then, secondly, that's where you backtrack into where are the places that I can achieve the lifestyle feeling that I want on the income I have that I'm expecting.
Absolutely. And I agree with that because we actually have a client who, gave us their budget. They were like, we realized that living here in this country, we're going to need to have at least $15,000 a month. And then they kind of were like, but dog, that's what they need to live off when they're in Atlanta. Because it's not necessarily always that it's cheaper. It's because now you realize, wow, there's some other things I want to do. That there's some other things I want to enjoy that this country may offer that did not have in wherever you're coming from,
Right,
or because you have more time.
right.
And so you realize that there's different things. So with that, if we're talking about lifestyle, we know lifestyle also costs, right? So
Mm-hmm,
lifestyle is not
mm-hmm,
free.
mm-hmm.
Um, and so as people are trying to prepare themselves for requirement, how do they know that they have a solid savings cushion? Is that even possible?
Savings or income?
Let's talk
Because
about
there's a little
both.
bit of a
I
difference.
love that.
Okay.
Let's talk about both. Let's talk about
So
both.
when you talk about savings, take moving out of the country out of it. If you were moving from Atlanta to Nashville,
Mm-hmm.
right? You would have to know where you were going to live, how much the rent was, how much is the moving truck to move all your stuff there, or are you going to sell everything or give it away? What are the steps to get there first? That's where your savings come in because you're going to have things pop up. How much are the visas? So let's take it, you're moving out of the country. You have to think about where do you want to live. You should go at least once or twice, if not three times, to the place that you're planning on living for
Well,
the rest of your
I
life.
went sight unseen, but
Listen, well, you know what though? You probably did a little more research about where you were doing sight unseen though. Yes, or you just said, Panama. Really? Tell
yeah,
me about
we'll
that.
talk about that
Okay,
later.
okay. So, no, well, I think it's awesome because sometimes if you overthink it, you have analysis paralysis. And if you know
Absolutely.
that you're that person that would do that, you might be,
Just
you know
go.
what? I'm gonna go and I'll build the bridge and the parachute on the
Yep,
way,
that's
right?
right.
But when it comes to savings, I think being able to handle the miscellaneous things
Mm-hmm.
are where people get caught up because when you go, yes, you got your income that you're expecting, but outside of that you might have other things. And I don't think the savings amount changes much whether you're moving out of the country or staying in the States. 3 to 6 months is like the bare minimum
Mm-hmm.
when you start talking about savings of your full monthly expenses. So if you anticipate your expenses being 15,000, then you need about a good 45 to
Mm-hmm.
65,
Yep.
45 to 60,000 to have as a cushion, not in your bank account, in your high yield savings account. That's not financial advice. That's not solicitation because there's, but
Just telling you for a friend.
just we're friends. And because people get nervous about from a banking perspective, I notice people are very nervous when I talk about high yield savings account. Your brick and mortars are not going to do that. You have to do an online banking system typically, but you're talking about 3 to 4% on just your money sitting there. So you
Mm-hmm.
want your money to always be making money. I'm gonna swing it back now. Sorry, I can't help it. I'm a nerd out.
No.
But the savings amount doesn't change that much. Your income, I think that's where people um get off base just a little bit. I have 3 clients right now who have already purchased their property that they're going to, and they did that as a precursor for when they get ready to fully retire. I think doing what you did is amazing. I would never tell somebody, don't do it. I'm like, well, let's figure out how. Like, oftentimes we go, I can't, instead of going, how can I make this happen?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but often with most of my clients, we have a 3 to 5 year runway where we're like, we know we want to leave the United States. We've calculated our Social Security, which is kind of sprinkles. We don't know
Mm-hmm.
what direction that's going to go in. We've calculated our what I call your floor, and there's a floor, and then there's the rooftop. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
the floor number is just to like be here and have a decent life and chill and not be stressed about money. Here's my number. Now, to be sitting on the rooftop overlooking the ocean with a glass of,
Is there another way
whatever,
to live?
whatever you want to, libation you would choose, what is that number? And kind of like that stretch number. And again, I always like to start with the end in mind and work our way back when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to those types of numbers.
And I'm glad you said like that 3 to 6 that we've been hearing all the time about. It doesn't change because you're moving abroad, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes I think we think, well, my rent is only going to be 1,000. I don't know where that place is either, but if my rent's only going to be 1,000, it's so cheap to live there. If I have $5,000 in the bank, I'm good, right? But it's not just because things are less that you don't need to still use the same financial principles
Exactly.
when you're
And one of the
going.
main reasons is you don't know if you might have an emergency and have to come back to the United States and do multiple trips now
Yeah.
because of health reasons. I have a friend who moved to Ghana and had her first son, got married, had her first son. Well, she was diagnosed with lupus. And now she has to go come back and forth from a medical perspective to go come back to the States for treatment. I have another family who's Eritrean and they were planning on retiring, but the wife has she has a condition that requires her to go get treatment every 6 weeks. So we're looking for hospitals. Kenya, they have to
Mm-hmm.
go. If they go there, they'll be going
Mm-hmm.
back and forth to Kenya,
Mm-hmm.
or having to come back to the United States. Or if you have grandkids, kids,
Yep.
your income might not encompass travel.
And that is something that we have to think about, right?
For
Like,
sure.
I mean, we think about how much our rent, our bills are, but we also have to think about those trips of
Mm-hmm.
coming back and forth for big occasions, small
Mm-hmm.
occasions that you also need to also consider in your budget. And so, since most of the women we know who are migrating or leaving the US are Black women, but
Mm-hmm.
not only are they Black women, most of them are single Black women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is where the concern comes because there is no safety net of another human being, right? And so, what kind of things that they could create, or what should they be putting in their financial portfolio so they could have sustainable lifestyle after retirement, right? So they're now moved and they're like, how can I sustain myself?
Okay.
And I want us to kind of think about it from a portfolio perspective
Mm-hmm.
versus I'm going to get a job, like an
Mm-hmm.
income perspective.
Okay, that's a very loaded question.
All right.
And the only reason why I say that is because it's so specific to the individual.
Mm-hmm.
For some women, so let me back up a little bit because as women and women of color, when you move and live abroad, I've lived in 8 different countries, 9 if you count the United States, right? When you move abroad, the level of, at least for me, I can't speak for everybody, there's a certain release that happens through that living.
Girl, it does.
Where even if you're single, so I'm 3.5 years married, right? But before him, I was moving out of the country and I was doing it by myself. So I understand the conversation. And part of that is because I wanted to feel safer and I wanted to feel less stressed about just being who I am as an American. Okay. That there's a level of woosah that happens when you move out of the country. Now, when you start thinking about income wise and generating income, That's going to be tough because if you're not going to start a business and you need extra income, there's a lot of creative ways to do it. Maybe you open your home up to other expats that are coming and, maybe you're Airbnb space. Maybe you are creating what I have seen is people create ways to enhance the communities that they're moving to, and that somehow offsets income as well. But I don't know how you generate money without generating some type of service for other
Mhm.
people to pay you for,
Mhm. Mhm.
unless you have the reserves necessary to have a standard income. There's ways to create that, absolutely, but again, it goes all the way back to budget.
Mhm.
Right? And so if you want sustainable income that you're never going to run out of money as long as you're alive, there are places that you can invest to make that happen. But if you're not in that position, I don't see how you can do that without creating income for yourself.
And so could you have an investable retirement? Like say someone is like, "Oh, I'm 53. I want to retire and relocate in 2 years. Could I invest enough that the dividends from these investments, would be able to be sustainable?" And I'm not talking about the $15,000 a month lifestyle, but let's just say the $3,000, $5,000 a month life, right? Is that even possible for someone to do that within 2 to 3 years, or is it too late? They
I
should have started a
think
long time
3 to 5 is realistic.
ago.
However, again, it depends on what you're willing to trade off,
Okay.
because you got to think about living. If we just calculate how much we spend on our cell phones, car insurance, car note, mortgage or rent, when we calculate all of those numbers every year, we're spending 40, 50, 60 grand
Mm-hmm.
on the bare necessities of just living in America. That's before food, before travel, before hair, before makeup, like
Yeah.
before the kids, before all those things. So I think it's doable. It's just a matter of what type of trade-offs are you willing to make. And then again, what type of money you're needing, because half a million, for example, is somewhere between 25, if it's invested well, somewhere between $2,500 and $3,200 a month
Okay.
indefinitely without you running out of money.
Okay.
If you go above that, then I mean, at 80, you're gonna be like, oh. So we don't want
No, that gives someone, but that gives someone perspective,
yeah.
right?
So that's the perspective of
So
it.
if you are like, okay, if I have a half a million I've saved, then and I have 3,000, that's all I can use from that, and I need to supplement it. Maybe I have a pension, maybe I have Social
Mm-hmm.
Security that could
Mm-hmm.
also supplement it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're like, well, how am I going to save a half a million in 3 to 5 years? Maybe you join the fire community, and so they'll definitely show you how you can save your money and reduce your
Right.
lifestyle. You will find out a lot of things that you don't need,
If you're starting
right?
from zero, though, I don't think that's realistic.
And
I think if
I hope that at least starting from the 30,000,
yeah,
at
like
least.
if you're starting with some, because compound interest works, but you have a shorter time horizon,
Mm-hmm.
right? If there's an advisor or someone giving financial advice that's like, yeah, I can take your 30,000 and turn it into 3 million tomorrow, run. Like it's literally not how it works unless you have the next big IPO or the next big
Mm-hmm.
app, or you're creating a company that someone's going to buy for $10 billion. Then, and even that has a 10-15 year runway on it. You can't you can't outwork the numbers and how money works. It's
Mm-hmm.
just, I haven't seen it yet in my over a decade of being a financial advisor. I haven't seen a product that's like we can outpace what the market does or what real estate does or whatever the case may be. The truth of the matter is you cannot save your way to wealth.
I love that.
It's
It's the truth, but I think a lot of people are like, I'm going to put my 10% away. I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to put my 20% away, and that's going to make me wealthy.
you have to be investing. You're going to invest in one of three things. You're going to invest in the market. That is not financial advice. You're going to invest in the market, you're going to invest in real estate, or you're going to invest in a business.
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't have a few $100,000 to start out with a viable business that they don't have to scale, that they're stepping into with cash flow already.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Most people with real estate, that takes time, that takes money. Even if you're thinking of going into like as an investor, flipping property, like that's a rich man's game too.
Mm-hmm.
Within it,
Mm-hmm.
within
Mm-hmm.
that.
They don't show it that way on
Oh
TV, but
no, do not listen. Yeah, me and Natalie, Natalie have had some very interesting conversations working with some of our investors. We share a few
mm-hmm.
clients. But systematic investing is just the simplest, easiest way to build wealth. And so that's why I always encourage people to not make it or like invest in the market or do this thing. It's invest and.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be or, it can be and. So back to your original question, I'm 50, was it 53?
So let's say this is a very imaginary person because this is imaginary advice for a 50. I'm 55. You have a 55-year-old woman, and she's like, I'm ready to leave in 3 to 5 years. I want to retire. I do have a pension. I do have a Social Security coming in. I have $30,000 now in my 401k. That is my biggest savings. I have my emergency fund of 3 to 6 months. So, what would you recommend she do in that period so she can build herself a sustainable, either income from investment or something that's going to give her some cash while she isn't, while she is living and she wants to live her best life.
Which is relative.
That's right.
Okay. But so we're 50, you said 55?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're 55, that means you have 4 years before you can even access your retirement accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So that's some time for that money to grow and scale. It goes back to the trade-offs. If you know I need to save 7 grand a month to hit the number that I need to hit so I can deuce out, then that means you are significantly reducing your overhead. I would not want to be in my 50s with a roommate, but I do know and have two clients who are older that started renting out space in their home to trusted,
Mm-hmm.
people, but they wanted to reduce their and well, what they wanted to do was accelerate paying their mortgage off, so that would be something that they would um, uh, and they don't have to pay it, so they can save that money. So it was
Mm-hmm.
like, a combination of a couple of things. So you might have to bite the bullet for a few years. Now, if you have a significant amount of savings in your 401k or your Roth and you're under 59, then it's about how do I bridge that gap? So I have many clients who their retirement aim is 55.
Mm-hmm.
And we're planning on how do you bridge the gap from 55 to 59,
Yeah.
because you can't tap into that until you're 59 and a half. So there's some math in there too, where it's like, okay, I need X amount of dollars so I can get X amount of income until my 401k kicks in,
Mm-hmm.
and then most people are not going to take their social until
67.
62. Some people are taking it a little early, 62,
Yeah.
65, 67.
Mm-hmm.
I work with people to see where that intersection is. So there's some math in there. I don't want to like scare people away from it, but you have to look at your assets and you have to look at the all of it and how it works together, not just one thing.
And I love that opportunity of changing the way you spend your money
Mm-hmm.
if you want to get to that goal, right? So I kind of joked around joining the fire community, but if you're saying this is what I want to do, I think it was Dave Ramsey who used to say, if you live like no one else today, you can live like no one else tomorrow. You could actually be able to achieve a really good stretch financial goal, but you would have to change your lifestyle.
For sure.
And I love that ideal of, perhaps maybe you never wanted to have a roommate, you didn't think about it, but having to rent out some rooms. That there's actually a term for it, I can't even remember what it is. House hatching, house hacking, right? So allowing someone to come and stay in your space for a little while so you could actually have the lifestyle that you want in your retirement, and just realizing this is a short-term sacrifice. And as Dave Ramsey always says, right? If you live like no one today, you can live like no one tomorrow. But it is going to make some changes. And I love, we were having our discussion about some of the things that you would do. So I would love to hear, just kind of talk about some of the things that you have done and some of your challenges that you've done with your friends in achieving some really, I probably would say, aggressive goals, or
Mhm.
sometimes just a goal?
Well, I mean, as an athlete, I'm competitive also. And I married somebody competitive, which is funny. And then my friends are competitive. I'll just say personally, because even though I'm a financial advisor, I still have goals, right? I'm not a multi-millionaire yet, but um, we often have challenges. Like right now within my circle, we have savings challenges right now. We're trying to see who can save an additional 10 grand the fastest. That's an actual like thing happening in my household and in my friendship group, right? And then next year we a bunch of us turn 50, so we're saving for those things. And oftentimes it's about what you're willing to trade off. It's not a sacrifice. I hate that word,
Hmm.
because sacrifices are things that you give up and there's no return whatsoever,
And it's painful,
and it's painful, right?
aimlessly.
And
There's
ain't
no,
you're just
yeah,
giving it up. Oh, I'm gonna
yeah,
sacrifice. No,
yeah.
as an athlete, I traded off time with my friends and parties and different things that I couldn't do because I was an athlete, and it paid off because I got had this amazing career. Same thing with your finances. There's just going to be some trade offs. And I shared with you already, even with my clients, and I do this with myself. I have this game, I call it the slide method, right? Every time you trade off doing something, whether it's stopping at a restaurant to eat out and going home instead, or oftentimes if I'm hungry and I'm traveling, instead of stopping at a fast food restaurant, I'll go to the grocery store because they have like hot meals. It's less expensive, and I'm gonna eat a little bit healthier, so I can keep some of the pounds off too. But every time I don't do something, decide not to do something, and make a more financially viable choice, I slide that money into my savings, even if it's just $15
Yep.
or ten
Or five
dollars or
dollars
$5, like whatever it is. I'm trading off the money in a high yield savings account. I'm trading off the money for my future. And I think that's probably the most important part, is just realizing that you're making the trade-off for a reason. You're not just doing it to do it. So if you're wanting to retire sooner, you will have some trade-offs, because living in America is just expensive.
It
And
is.
living on your own in America is expensive.
It
So either
is.
have to make more money. It's easier to make more money in America than to save more money. It is. However, if that's your choice, those are some things you can do.
And I love that. I'm a always like, make more money so you can save more money, not just
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
kind of. And I love this, call it trade off. So I've kind of like in my personal life has said I'm only going to go out once a week, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's not. And I don't feel like you said, I don't feel like it's a sacrifice. I just feel like there's other things and other priorities that I have right now, other things that I'm working on, which does not give me the opportunity to hit all the hot, sexy events that are happening every single night, that I need to be in my house with my head down working on some other things.
Mhm.
And so therefore I've given myself one night a week
Yeah.
to have a great time. And on that one night a week, I do have a great time. I'm not worrying about what my bill looks like. And I'm also not worrying about what I'm eating, because
Yeah.
that also happens like during the week. I'm also watching
It's
my
like your cheat
calories,
day. Mhm.
right? So I'm eating egg whites all during the week, but I'm not going to do that when I go out. So I love that, it's a trade-off, and we have to think about that. If you have a real goal, if you're really interested in retiring, it's not just going to happen because you wish it, because you
Mm-mm.
desire it. It's going to
Mm-mm.
take some work.
Mm-mm.
And that's such a great way of saving money. So before we go, I just wanted to give us, what one money mindset would you say a Black woman over 40 needs to shift if she really wants to relocate?
Self prioritization.
Ooh.
What I've noticed in many of my clients is, and I don't mean that on just how you support other people financially, I also mean oftentimes we tend to spend our money on how other people are going to respond to us.
Mhm.
So I have to have this car
The bags.
because when I pull up to the spot, I need everybody to know, or I got to have this bag because that's last year's.
Hmm.
There is a certain swag that comes with having actual money, not just looking like you have money.
Honestly.
So I think that's the biggest one, is figuring out how to prioritize your goals and your dreams above what the expectations are of the people around you.
Mm.
And I know you asked for one, but I'll say a second one. Involve your closest circle. Involve them. So my friends know when I say no, I'm not going. They already know. Yep, she said she's on the shutdown, and she's or they know like I went on vacation with mom and we talk about a budget blower. We were done. Like I was supposed to leave to go to Morocco, and I told my friend, yeah, not going. Mama got in the bag. So they know, okay, she shut down for a little while. My friends know when I say no, it's not because I don't love them and I don't want to be there. No, I'm not spending money on that intentionally for this period of time. So those will be, I would have to just put those two together.
And that goes to community and having
Mm-hmm.
the right community
Yeah,
around
for
you
sure.
who understands about it's a long-term thing. It's a
Mm.
long-term vision that you're working towards something, and we're here to support you, right? And not kind of like trying to guilt you. Oh, come on, you got enough. You're gonna be
Or why you
good.
want to do that? What you want
Yes.
to move out of the country for? Why you want
Oh,
to go over there?
yes,
Because I
yes.
do.
Literally, someone said to me, "That's like, I don't know anybody who's moving out the
A
country. I
lot
don't
of
know
people.
anybody in Panama." And I said, yes, it's 102% off this Q1 of 2025, and now you know me. So now you know somebody. So people are moving abroad, people are making changes in their lives, and we just have to make sure that we're in a circle where people are supporting even with our financial goals, because it does take a village. And a
It
village
does.
may not necessarily be contributing financially to your growth, but their attitude, their energy, their compliments, their
Mm-hmm.
high five. There's like, get it,
The
girl.
art. I read this article. I saw this.
Yes.
I thought about you.
Information
Yeah.
sharing, all the
Mm-hmm.
things. So right before we go, I just want to ask you all rapid fire questions.
Uh
Sneakers
oh.
or stilettos?
I can't do both.
No.
Okay, well, I can't wear stilettos anyway. I'm 6'4". That's why they call me the tall money lady. I wear heels. I'm gonna go sneakers.
Okay,
Okay.
sneakers. I just want to say I have never seen her in sneakers. Lots of high heels I've seen her in. Probably these are the flattest shoes I've seen her in yet.
Yeah.
She actually, I never told you this, but when we met, you had on these really high heels. You were with someone else. I can't remember, another former WNBA player, and both of you had on high heels, and I was like, you guys have really given me the gut to wear high heels, because I just never wore high heels, and I still don't. But I still try. Like I got like a 2 inch here and a 2.5, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm doing the thing. I can
It
do the
changes
thing.
the way you walk.
It does. It changes how your hips sway.
Somebody, I'm not gonna say who,
So
was heard me say something about heels and was like, "No, you don't need." I said, "Sir, that is your problem, not mine.
that's right.
If you feel short, not my problem."
That's right.
But anyway,
So all right. So sneakers.
mhm,
Um, Vacationing. You just came back from a whirlwind of Latin America, South
mhm.
America. I saw you out there. So were you now going to choose beach or a city?
That's not fair. I literally just said I am not someone who can choose between the beach or the mountains. I love them both.
Okay, well, I didn't give you mountains.
I know, but beach or city, I'm going to go with city near the beach. Can I do that?
Can you see this girl? Come and get, come
City
and get
near
your
the beach.
tall money lady. All right, and the last one, books, because I know you read,
Mm-hmm. A
and
lot.
you also hooked me up with masterclass. Thank you very
Yeah, I love
much.
masterclass. Yes,
Yes,
yes, yes.
oh, I love it. So book, hard copy, or audio?
Audio.
Because you,
However, I'll trade a caveat in there. I do a lot of self development, and most of my self development books are audio. But if I like it, I get the hard copy, physical. But I also do Kindle reading also,
yeah,
because like you can't really travel with like all five of the
I
books you want to
know.
read. So I'm a little bit of a mixture, but if I go by percentage, it's going to be Audible.
I love a good audible, and I do the same thing. Then I get
Hmm.
the Kindle so I can highlight.
Yeah, because I'm like, oh, that was good, because you can't
Yeah.
really take
And then Kindle, you
notes.
can go right back to it. You just
Yeah,
like keyword search and get right
yeah.
back. So I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for
You're
being here.
welcome.
How
Thanks
can
for
people
having
reach out
me.
to you and connect with you and actually get financial advice? Because this was just a conversation.
So I will say, first of all, if you're looking for a financial advisor, even if it's not me, because this is not a solicitation for clients. Okay. Make sure you're dealing with a fiduciary. I think that is the most important part to look for. And there's not a lot of women or Black women that are fiduciaries, but we're out there. Find a fiduciary so that you can be confident in the advice that they give. If you have questions about what we talked about today about moving abroad, I'm trying to think about how to say it compliantly. The Tall Money Lady at gmail.com, or sorry, Nakia at the Tall Money Lady is my email address. Nakia at tallmoneylady.com is the email address, or you can find me on social media. The Tall Money Lady is my moniker for everything
All,
on social.
and she's all over the world,
I
always
love
doing something.
traveling.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming. I
Thanks.
enjoyed talking to
Thank you
you
so
and seeing
much.
you
Appreciate
again.
having you and on your
Yes,
quick trip to Atlanta.
yes, thank you.
Thanks.